everything New Orleans Pelicans from a fan's perspective. "27 points, 5 rebounds." Welcome to Pelicans Flock Report, where I give you everything New Orleans Pelicans from a fan's perspective. I'm your host, D. Broussard. Rebuild or retool? The future of the Pelicans is on the line. That's what I feel. That's what I think. Now, the Pelicans have made some strides this season, but ultimately it did not happen for us this season. And it's a lot of question marks going into this offseason. Should we rebuild or should we just retool? And I feel like everything starts with one man, like always, Zion Williamson. Now, it was reported already that Zion may be signing an extension this year, this offseason. And we all saw the press conference with Joe Dumars where he said he has no intention on trading Zion Williamson. And I felt like they had a lot of fans with mixed feelings about that because, of course, some fans feel like it's time to move on from Zion. Some fans feel like we should keep Zion and continue to retool and build around him. Now, here's the thing about that, and I'm going to just give my personal opinion on that. I've been watching the NBA for a long time, on and off the court, and one thing that I know about front office personnel, they'll never discuss internal conversations with the media. So by people running with what Joe Dumars said about Zion Williamson, it may be true, but then at the same time, it may not be true. So for me, I don't really pay attention to reports and things of that nature that much because I feel like, front office personnel, they're never gonna really give information to the media. I've never seen that before. But I also have seen GMs and front office personnel say, hey, we don't plan on trading this guy. But then when the right move or the right trade comes about, they're going to move that guy. So I don't really believe that fully, but it's a possibility that it may be true. And if it is true, then the Pelicans have to figure out what are they going to do to retool this roster around Zion Williamson if he's going to continue to be the cornerstone or the building block of this franchise. And that's why I said everything always starts with him. And as far as Joe Dumars, I want to say this as well. In today's time, I feel like people are looking for a right away result. And we have to understand that with basketball and in the NBA, it takes time to build a winner, especially when you're bringing in somebody new in the front office and has a certain way that he wants to structure a team. It's going to take a while. You're going to have to get draft capital. You're going to have to make the right trades and the right moves to build what you're looking to build. And what I got from Joe Dumars is that he's looking to build a defensive team, get after it, physical, kind of like what he said about Sadiq Bey, embodying what he wants to build in New Orleans. And those type of things are going to take time. You can't expect a guy to turn a franchise around in one season. The first season is always kind of like assessment season where you just kind of see, okay, what do we have? What do I need to change? What do I need to do? What moves I need to make? What uh, works well on the roster? What doesn't work? All of those things have to be assessed. And then you figure out, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. And these are the things that I need to focus on mainly. Because in the press conference, Joe Dumars said that, he felt like the team just wasn't consistent enough throughout the season. And I felt the same way. I never once felt like the the Pelicans were going to make the playoffs throughout the entire season. I just didn't. I didn't because, you know, of course, the firing of Willie Green, having a coaching change in a season is always tough. Also, the injuries, DeJounte Murray being out for so long, the guys not really having chemistry with one another, it taking time to build chemistry. All of those things, I never felt like we were going to make the playoffs because normally when you come into a season, most of those things are already figured out. You already know who the coach is. You already know what the system is. That's why you have training camp and things of that nature. That's how you build chemistry to prepare yourself for the season. But we didn't have that. It was a different coaching style. The roster just didn't really gel well in a new coaching style. So it was a lot of things that made me feel like we weren't going to make the playoffs. And the play in, maybe, but ultimately, it didn't happen. So I just felt like this season was going to be an assessment season for Joe Dumars, Charles Weaver, to see, okay, being that we're trying to build this type of team, this is what we're going to have to do to build that type of team. And also the young core development. I feel like that's going to be a huge uh, thing to base everything upon, whether we rebuild or retool. And, you have guys like Trey Murphy, Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen, E. Misi, Carlo Magovic, Micah Peavy. The development of those guys are really going to let us know what we need to do. Do we need to rebuild or retool? And if we're going to retool, then we just need to add a few guys to that core and continue growing. If we're going to rebuild, then we're going to need to trade away some of the star players like a Zion or Herb Jones or DeJounte Murray. We're going to have to trade away one of those guys and just go in a rebuild mode around this young core because I feel like the Pelicans, we have talent, but the real question is whether this core can actually win together. And that's the huge question mark. Can this core win together? Because the talent is there. I've always said that. I said that throughout the whole season. We definitely have a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism. But I kind of agree with Joe Dumars and what he said in the press conference that talent doesn't really guarantee wins. You can have a lot of talent on the roster, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be competitive night in and night out. So talent is just only a certain percentage of what it takes to be a contender, especially in the NBA today, because you see a lot of teams where they don't really have a whole lot of talent as far as guys that can jump out the gym and athleticism and things of that nature, but they have the right pieces in place to make that team really good. So talent is just only a small portion. Also, playing in the Western Conference. I feel like playing the Western Conference has always been a tough task for the Pelicans throughout all the years, even during the Anthony Davis era, the Chris Paul era. Like playing in the Western Conference has always been a huge task for the Pelicans. And if you're gonna continue to build, you have to build a team that's gonna be able to compete in the Western Conference against top tough teams like the Denver Nuggets, OKC, the San Antonio Spurs. Um, the Los Angeles Lakers are always gonna be competitive. Um, the Portland Trail Blazers are looking really, really good right now. I could only imagine what that team would look like with a healthy Dame Lillard. Like they would be really dangerous, and they would possibly have a good chance to go to the NBA Finals, in my opinion. So I just think if you're gonna build a roster, you have to build a roster that's gonna be able to compete in a stacked Western Conference going forward. So that's a huge deal as far as what decision we need to make, rebuild or retool. Also, trade possibilities. Trading guys like I said, like a DeJounte Murray, Jordan Poole, Herb Jones, Zion Williamson. You know, these are all I still feel are trade possibilities going into the offseason just because I feel like no player is really safe when you're trying to build a winning team. You know, a guy can come out and say, "Hey, we don't plan on trading this guy," but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not going to happen if the right deal comes about or a phone call is made and they say, "Hey, we're willing to give you 2 first-round picks in this draft for a guy like a Zion Williamson or a DeJounte Murray or a Herb Jones." You know, those are moves that you may have to make if it's going to make the team better. So I feel like even though Joe said what he said, it's still no guarantee that this full roster will be back next season, even the star guys. Because if you're in the position of basketball operations or GM, you have to do what it takes to make the team better and get the team in a place where they can be able to compete, especially like I said, in the Western Conference. So um, trade possibilities are still in the air. I feel I'm not really paying attention to reports and things of that nature because I feel like none of that really matters. I feel like it's only perspective per se. So um, we'll see what happens with that. But uh, I definitely feel like I said before, and I continue to say, Joe Dumars, Troy Weaver, I feel like they're gonna get it right. I just think it's gonna take time. And these type of things take time. And if you're gonna retool, you gotta find the right pieces to go with what type of team you're trying to build. If you're gonna rebuild, then I feel like you need to trade away uh some assets to get back some assets and going that route. But I don't think Joe Dumars is planning on rebuilding at all. I think it's more of a retool. And I think that's what they're gonna do. I think they're gonna just retool and restructure the roster. um, I don't think Kevon Looney will be back next season. Guys like DeAndre Jordan, I don't think he's gonna be back. It's a huge question mark around Carlo Makovic, just because I feel like, I think that his contract is he's eligible for an extension, or I think his contract will be expiring after this offseason, from what I read. So I don't know what's going to happen with that situation, but I definitely feel like the Pelicans should maybe try to re-sign Carlo Makovic, because I do feel like this kid has a lot of potential. He has a lot of talent, and I feel like if he continues to develop, he's definitely going to be um, a huge piece to the puzzle. I really do, because he's shown some signs throughout this season that he can be a very good player for us going forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that situation. Obviously, Sadiq Bey is eligible for extension, which I feel like Sadiq should definitely get that extension without question. He deserves it. He played for it. So it's a lot of things that's um, going to be taking place during the off season, and I'm really looking forward to it, as I've been saying. But my guess would be that the roster is definitely going to be retooling, not rebuilding. But I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Should the roster rebuild or retool? Now, rebuilding is going to take some time. We looking at maybe 3 to 5 years to rebuild this team around the young guys like Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen. It's going to take some time. But if we retool, it may only take 1 season or 2 seasons, and we might be in the picture to be a contender. So we'll see what happens. But like always, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, the all new Pelicans Flock Report, where I give you everything New Orleans Pelicans from a fan's perspective. Turn those notifications on. I will continue to drop content throughout the off season, so make sure you got them notifications on. I'm your host, D. Broussard. Until next time, I'm out.